I gotta tell you something I could do. I could be running around chasing you, but I won't. Cause I got better things to do. Rather spend my precious time chasing somebody who loves me too. If I got $1 for every time you slam the door, I would be the richest girl alive. If you hadn't run away every time I asked you stay, you would sleep right next to me tonight. But you didn't know me, all you wanted was a game to play, and you couldn't handle that I had no ways. Around your matrix and your side chicks, I'm a winner, babe. But you didn't win this, it's a part of the game. In the beginning, I just didn't know.
Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We hope your experience is fruitful. Please feel free to visit our website to find out how you can join our growing family. While we are loading your experience, please do us a quick favor and hit that like button from whichever platform you're watching or listening on. Also, share so others may enjoy as well. And we hope you would consider hitting that subscribe or follow button so you can check out more of our amazing content. All right, let's start the show.
Hey, happy Friday, Junior. I'm Nicole D. Vick of Nicole D. Vick Live. Welcome to Nicole D. Vick Live. Every Thursday, I go live. Either you hear my voice, you don't see my face, or you see my face, and I bring to you important topics that affect or impact the Black community. I'm a Black woman, so I got to speak from my experience. I mean, where else am I going to speak from? I can't speak nowhere but from here, right? This week, we're going to have a really, really good episode. Now, before we get into that, though, like, it's been some breaking news. It's been like, what is going on? Puff Daddy is getting sued. Cassie's like, hold on, you've been some shenanigans and wild stuff happening. And then what? The week before that, it was Kiki and the baby daddy. It's a lot going on in our community. I just need folks to get their stuff together, get their lives together, stop acting crazy, get in line, get information, get it together. Okay. Abuse is not okay. Violence is not okay. Get it together. And I know a lot of people already had suspicions about Puffy and what he was doing, what he wasn't doing. And I think this lawsuit, confirms a lot of things for a lot of people. I'm wishing Cassie the best. I'm going, to me, my thing is you always side with the person that has been impacted. If we find something out later, my bad. But and I'm just going to leave that there. And it's the same thing with Kiki, wishing her safety, her baby safety. It's just a lot. It's a lot going on. And I don't think, we were prepared to see those photos of what was going on with the abuse. So I'm wishing her the best, wishing her safety, because it's a lot. Today, we are going to talk about fat phobia. So I have a classmate, and we're going to bring her on in a second, and friend, right? She is really focused on the intersection of fat phobia and healthcare, specifically for Black women. And when she told me this, she was on one of our previous episodes of Nicole D. Vick Live. I was like, oh, you got to come back. We got to have this conversation. I've been hearing way too often fat Black women, fat women in general, having issues accessing healthcare. And I'm like, we got to talk about this. This topic is deeply personal to me. If you can't tell, I'm fat. And I actually don't have a issue with the term fat. Some people, oh, no, you're not fat, you're fluffy. Baby, I'm fat and it's fine. Fat is a descriptor, like tall or short. It's fine. Now, what I don't like is when people call me fat, because usually when they're calling me fat, they're not calling me fat in the way that I'm calling myself fat. I hope that makes sense. But anyway, we can get into some of that later. But I just want to talk to you about this before we lead into this episode. That fat phobia is one of the last sort of acceptable biases. And we're going to dig into why that is so, and how, it can be a challenge mentally for us. You feel bad somebody's talking about you, but it's often more than that. We have issues accessing healthcare, issues accessing other things. And so this episode is going to really touch on her research, what she's found. And we just going to have a real conversation because, like I said, I live in a fat body and have for most of my life. I've been skinny for a few moments in time. But, for some reason, the body goes back to what it wants to go back to, just like at the dentist. If you don't wear your retainer, what your teeth do? Your teeth go right back to what they was like. And the dentist told me, I went to the dentist last week. She was like, oh, you wearing your retainer, right? Because your teeth will go back. And I'm like, same thing. I feel like with your body weight, your body naturally gravitates to what it wants to do. We can argue that point to death if you want to, but let's just get into the topic. I'm bringing my girl Brandi in. Brandi Nicole is our guest this week. She is an author, blogger, vlogger, student, learning design professional. She was born and raised in Flint, Michigan, and that's a whole nother conversation. What's still happening in Flint, right? Brandi has always had a passion for literacy and understanding people. Equipped with the support of her family, she pursued these passions, leading her to pursue her doctoral degree in organizational change and leadership at USC. Hey. She's focusing her studies on the harmful effects of fat phobia, which we'll be talking today, specific to Black women. Currently residing in Atlanta, Brandi is an avid reader, writer, and outdoor enthusiast. Come on, Brandi, we got something to talk about. Hey, girl.
Hey, hello.
Woo woo. I'm so happy to have you back. I was going to say, have you here for the first time? You've been here before. You were on the episode about, the 3% or is it less than that of Black women with doctoral degrees and how our journey has been such a beautiful journey, but at the same time, like, child.
Yeah, listen, we are being the representation, but it ain't easy.
It's not at all. Now, when you were here the last time, you touched on what your research was on, and I kind of stated it again. But can you share again a little bit about what you are wanting to find out with your research?
Sure. So if I had to make it bite-sized, it's the impact of fat phobia on Black women specific to healthcare settings. So just what Black women are experiencing in healthcare settings related to their weight and how they're using that to inform their decision-making in relation to their health and wellness overall.
And how do you define fat phobia? I'm on social media a lot, more than I probably should be. The unbig my back, and when someone says something, the first thing they want to jab at is their weight. Big backs get bent over too. Why am I picking all the freaky ones? What is fat phobia?
So fat phobia is weight stigma. And so it's weight stigma, it's weight bias, it's an irrational fear and or hatred for bigger bodies. And so I think it's complex because there are different types of fat bodies. So I tell people all the time, people that say like, oh, you're not fat, you're just super thick. It's like, if you knew the numbers on the scale, if you knew what the BMI is, like, yeah, I'm fat. I just, because of the way that my proportions are built, maybe I'm a more acceptable fat than somebody who may be my same weight, but has different proportions. But overall, it is that stigma that comes against a specific body type that is overweight based on a person's perception.
And interesting you said that, because even in the plus size community, the fashion community, the plus size travel community, you hear small fat. versus like I don't think the term is supersize. I can't remember what the term is, but the super fat. Thank you. And so, even within the community, super fat may be like, well, you're a small fat, so I don't even know why you even, here trying to say anything. You can go to the store and get clothes, and it's like not necessarily so. So I even see the division within our own community, like around who's fat enough, I guess, right? And that's been very interesting to be witness to. And again, not to downplay how super fats have to also sort of navigate the world, could be also very different. They may have mobility challenges or other things, but I don't know if you even have any thoughts on that in particular.
Yeah, I do. I think it's important to note, because on social media you see a lot where there may be a woman who's fat, and I agree with what you said in your intro, that like I don't have an issue. I don't find issue with the word fat. You can call it whatever you want, thick, curvy, fluffy. Fat, it's a descriptor, like you said, like saying tall. So when I say fat, use that however, interchange that with whatever word makes you comfortable. But I think you can see a woman who's fat, but because her waist is smaller, people are like, oh my goodness, she looks so good. And then you see Lizzo, who's one of the fat girls that catches hell because of her size, and because she's more apple shaped and she has more of a stomach, it's like, oh, unacceptable. She's promoting obesity. It's like she's promoting obesity simply by existing in her body and deciding that like, hey, I want to wear cute clothes too, and I want to get in front of a camera, I want to go on vacation, and people are like, how dare you, I have kids. She can't go on vacation. And that is fat phobia, and the body stigma is crazy based on shape and proportions. I might be the same weight as Lizzo, but it's perceived totally differently if your waist is small, if your butt is big, etc.
Exactly. And I think one of the other things that I noticed too, even when you say on social media, I'm scrolling past and I see a plus size or fat person in the gym, you would say, oh, well, to me, I'm like, oh, she's working out. He or she's working out. That's cool. Why you got that on? All the comments are bad. I'm like, but I thought that's what you want fat people to do. But we still, it's so confusing.
You can't win.
And I think to your point, you can't win. So it's almost like, I think to me, I think this is Lizzo's approach. I'm just going.
Just going to live my life. What else can you do?
Because it's always going to be something.
Always.
So why is this topic important? Why is weight stigma, fat phobia important for us to even be talking about?
Our lives depend on it. Like when we talk about healthcare, the amount of neglect that's happening, the amount of underdiagnosing and misdiagnosing that's happening in these healthcare settings is so dangerous. And I've had a personal experience with it. I was on birth control for a number of years, and I went to the doctor because I had this really bad like swelling in my arm. Like I couldn't even extend my arm out. And I'm like, what's going on? It was like, when I say pain was like a 9 out of 10, it was really bad. And I had to go to 3 to 4 different doctors and eventually the ER before somebody says like, let's take a look and see what it really is. And it was a blood clot caused by my birth control that could have killed me. Like that's potentially fatal had I not continued to pursue, getting some help here. Cause I'm like, something is really wrong. But they're like, oh, the first doctor told me it was a fat nodule. I'm like, this is not a fat nodule. There is something going on. They're like, just elevate it. Just take some aspirin. Just put some ice on it. Just put some heat on it. These types of things are happening all the time. I see the stories online. I seen a story where a woman talked about telling her doctor, hey, there's something going on with my stomach. I have like some kind of something there. And they're like, no, you just need to lose weight. She spent a year. She lost like 60 to 80 pounds, went back. Hey, something's still wrong. It was a tumor. So they missed it for a whole year while they're telling her to just lose weight. And so when I say it's extremely important, our lives literally depend on seeing this change.
And it's crazy that you mentioned that because my next question is like, listen, and I know you can probably agree with this. I'm plus size, fat, whatever. I have a plus size adult daughter. My mama plus size. I have plus size friends. And it definitely, hits home for me because of those. I've heard those stories. And you literally just said it. Oftentimes I hear, well, something was wrong with me and I went to the doctor, and instead of actually examining me, the answer is, well, you probably need to lose a few pounds. It's like, no. I'm trying to tell you my eyeball hurt. And your answer to me is losing weight. And it's like, no. And you also kind of answered this question because I was going to ask you, why is this topic important to you? You talked about your personal experience. Literally a blood clot could have traveled to anywhere in your body and caused a problem for you. Are there any other reasons why this topic is really heavy on your heart?
I think much like you, like I'm plus size. Most of my family plus size. The women in my family are plus size women. A lot of my friends either are or they've struggled with weight in one way or another. It's such a constant conversation, and I feel like it's becoming normalized to be treated like this in healthcare settings where people are like, I expect that, so I just am figuring out ways around it. Like we're constantly having conversations about what do you say to a doctor when they say that, or how do you, go about getting treatment? If I ask you to test me for something and you say, no, I want you to just lose weight, what am I supposed to do then? So just those conversations, and also the amount of fat phobia in the media pushes the importance of this for me. Like we really have to start seeing and appreciating bodies for what they are. As you mentioned, it's the last acceptable, what did you say, form of bias? Yeah, exactly.
It absolutely is. And our producer is going to put up a graphic of article that I found. I found several articles that said fat phobia is the last acceptable bias. And I did a video on TikTok earlier today to really explain what that means, because all other types of biases, right? Well, not all of them, but most biases have some sort of legal protection, right? You cannot not hire me because I'm older. As a matter of fact, I remember just recently applying for a job and it asked me if I was over the age of 40, but I think that was because it was some way to kind of protect, or, you can't not hire me because of race. You can't, ableism. You can't do certain things you just can't do because they're legal protections to protect people. And even LGBTQ, as much as I disagree, I think homophobia is also acceptable. There is legal protection though. We don't have that. If someone decides, girl, you too fat, I don't want to hire this fat girl, and I can sense that's what it was, I don't have any way to file a claim, file a lawsuit, or anything like that. And so it's just really interesting that in some sense it is the last acceptable bias. It's okay to make fun of someone for their body shape or body size. It's okay to discriminate at work or in other settings. So yeah, I don't know how we change that. I'm sure there's some entity that's maybe working on that, but it's really interesting, that there's studies and people are researching this and saying, yes, the fear of fat is our last acceptable bias. People are so afraid of being fat.
Absolutely.
That they'll do anything. And it drives an entire industry. We haven't even touched on that. It drives an entire industry. Plastic surgery, weight loss supplements, gyms, fitness clothes, all these things, because people are so afraid of being fat is the worst thing. It's being black. And being fat, or nobody wants to eat either of those, and it's crazy. So I don't know if any thoughts on that. I didn't know that.
There's a influencer I follow. Her name is Sassy Latte on Instagram, and I remember during the pandemic, she had a whole movement about my body is not your quarantine nightmare. And so, everybody was like, oh, I'm gaining weight, I'm going to be fat, because of the pandemic and quarantining. And she's like, it's fat phobic to make me feel like you're so scared to have the body that I have. That's your nightmare. That's your worst fear. You just don't have to say that. You can do what's comfortable for your body without shaming somebody else's.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right about that. Because I know I picked up some weight. I just bought some more clothes. I would.
Well, gotta go up a size.
I was like, okay, we sold all the other ones on Poshmark. I just bought some more clothes. Yeah. So before we head into our commercial break, I want to ask you, what type of study are you doing And why did you choose that method? Are you doing quantitative, qualitative? So just a little bit of that, just a little bit of the doctoral side, like, ooh,
Yes, so I'm doing a qualitative, but more specifically, I'm going to do narrative inquiry. And so it's a storytelling form of qualitative. So instead of prompting with more specific questions, it's more tell me about a time, or, share your experience with the BMI. And it's allowing them to tell their full story and share what they find important or what they find valuable or that stuck out to them in this storytelling. So I think there's so many powerful stories held in the minds of these Black women about these experiences. So just giving them the space to really share that openly.
I think that's amazing. How many women are you interviewing?
So I interviewed 4 different women. So I did 2 separate interviews for each. So they were pretty long form interviews. So we spent some time, we dug in.
Wow. And I think that's so important because first and foremost, nobody never asks us anything. Nobody listens. Nobody cares. So I think that is so important. And I think that narrative is really, I think a lot, quantitative. No. What are people experiencing? What are their perceptions of a thing? Like, to me, that is so important to understand, like, the nuances and like what's really happening. And let me tell you, I did quantitative. I didn't do narrative, but I was like, how is it possible? I'm interviewing people all over the United States. How y'all got this? How y'all living the same life professionally that I am? I don't even understand. But it's crazy because that just really speaks a lot to what the heck is going on. So kudos to you for that. We're going to go on break, and then I'm going to see if we have if you got any findings or anything you want to share. I know you're researching and you kind of need to not be telling people's business, but you get what I'm saying. Yeah. Commercial. Woo!
In a world filled with diversity, where radical faith and progressive believers come together, there's a place that's breaking all boundaries and embracing believers from all walks of life. Bullet and Flight Radio, where believers unite, boundaries break, and love triumphs. Step away from the chaos and noise of your daily life. Experience moments for yourself that are calm, serene, and full of peace. A necessary respite to foster growth within you, because self-care should be luxurious. Luxe Noir.
We are back. Always proud to be part of the Pyro Media Network and the Pyro Media family. Woohoo! All right. So are there any findings, anything you can share, themes, like what are they saying without, of course, disclosing who they are or anything like that? You already know.
Sure. I mean, as I'm sure everybody with their dissertation I can talk about this for hours, so I'm gonna try to keep it brief. So a few like major takeaways or themes so far. Familial influence. So this was something I didn't think about going into the research, but it came up in every single interview, how someone's home and their foundation at home made a difference in how they perceive their weight. So whether you had a family that had similar body types, or your family was much thinner and you were the only thicker person in the family, how your family spoke about weight, all of those things really shaped their experience, especially as it related to their first experience with the BMI. So did that catch them off guard? Did they feel like, that was something that was acceptable? Like, how did that frame that experience? So that was one thing I found. The BMI is unserious, very exclusionary. So it does not take into account that as Black women, our bodies are built differently. We have genetic differences. And lastly, I would say that it really brought into focus how we don't begin to question ourselves until someone tells us to. And so everybody started to point out that after that initial experience with the BMI in the healthcare office, then they started to wonder, well, what's wrong with me? Oh, well, I need to lose weight. Oh, well, there's something wrong with the way I'm living my life. There's something wrong with how I look. Before that, they didn't have that experience. They felt good about themselves. They're children, most of them at this point, children to teenagers. And they're like, yeah, I'm active. I have fun. I go play basketball. I do whatever. But then you go to the doctor and they say something's wrong. And then you begin to internalize that. And it builds into a life full of internalizing body issues.
Wow. You know, as you were talking about that first sort of finding or theme, good point, because I obviously now as an adult can look back and say my mom obviously had issues about herself because they then transferred to me. I don't know if you know this, but as a kid, I think I was in elementary school, she would give me Slim Fast. Now, I don't remember if I asked for the Slim Fast or if she decided to give it to me. I don't remember. But I remember that strawberry Slim Fast, child, and she would put a raw egg in it. I'm surprised I ain't dead from salmonella, E. coli, or something. But like in this sort of quest to become smaller, she was the one that paid for Lindora for me to get on it and do this whole keto thing. Thankfully, my kidneys and liver is still intact, right? I'm the one that went to get lipo. I paid for that on my own, financed it. I could have did something else for $10,000, but I would go get lipo. I don't know. So it is really interesting, though. Like again, her perception of herself and how that played off on me. But even now, me as a mother of an adult child, I never made that an issue for her. Like, oh my God, girl, it's like, no, you are fine as you are. If you want to do something different with yourself, that is you can do that. It's your body. But yeah, I think that plays a big role. And you're right too. Like if you're the big one and everybody else is skinny, you kind of start to feel like, man. So switching gears a little bit back to the healthcare providers, I've heard this concept. I'm looking for a physician that practices this concept of health at every size. And how, what does that mean? And did that come up in your research or in your lit review or anything like that?
Yes. So I don't think people were putting a name to it in the research, but I did come across that where I'm seeking out a provider that's not concerned about my weight as much as my health. And so health at every size is just that we're focusing on health, but not necessarily correlating it to weight. And so if you are taking all of my, labs and everything is coming back clear, you're not like, well, you still need to lose weight. Like, why? If there's nothing wrong, if I'm telling you I'm active, I'm telling you I'm eating decently, I'm telling you that everything is fine on my end, all of my labs are clear, everything looks good, then why are you harassing me about, trying to force me into weight loss surgery or taking a diet pill if everything is clear? So just that focus on, hey, I just want you to be healthy, whatever size that looks like, then that's fine. But one thing that I always tell doctors if it gets here is like, hey, I want you to treat me and diagnose me as if I were a thin white woman. So don't treat me like, oh, well, because of this. No, I want you to run all the tests. If I came in here looking completely healthy by your standard, I want you to treat me like you would that.
Yeah, that's wow. Did any of those doctors turn red? Like, ooh,
they get uncomfortable.
And you know what else I learned? I learned this from one of my other plus size friends. You do not have to get on the scale if you don't want to.
Oh yeah, I made a video about that, about like things to know about going to healthcare providers as a fat Black woman. You can decline being weighed. And also, if they refuse to do something, so they say like, oh, I'm not going to test you for that, I want you to lose weight. Okay, can you please document that in my note and then print me out a copy?
Yep.
99% of the time, they're going to be like, I'll just run it for you. I don't want to, but I will, because they don't want to be held liable if they, deny you.
Yeah, that's crazy. And so we actually answered the next question. What can individuals do? But the other question I'm thinking about is systems level. Do we need to train doctors better? Do we need to train nurses better? Do we need to train physician assistants, nurse practitioners? What do we need to do to make this better so that plus size folks, fat people that try to access healthcare are treated like the thin white woman, because that's what, we want everybody to be treated the same way. Because the reality is, when you are part of a marginalized group and you access healthcare and that healthcare is negative, guess what? You don't go back. And you're the one that needs to go back. We need to be checking. Everybody needs to go to the doctor. But you know what I mean? It's like, that's when usually something ain't right, and now I ain't going back. And then you need to be there because there could be something going on, like with your issue you had. So what do we need to be thinking about at systems level, higher level, as far as maybe, is it med school? What do we need to be doing differently? Or advocating for?
I think it needs to be no tolerance policies. So if we can understand diversity as it relates to skin color, we can understand diversity as it relates to, hair type. We're talking about 4C hair, 4B hair. We can understand diversity in every way, except when it comes to bodies. There's no way we can think every person is different, but everybody's body should look the same. And so the same way that it is a no tolerance on being racist as a provider, supposed to be, there's no tolerance as far as supposed to be, as far as how you treat somebody of a different race or ethnicity or background or socioeconomic status. The same way that is perceived is the same way body type should be. And so I think we have to put in a no tolerance policy. I think understanding is lacking, of course. So we want to be thoughtful about how we educate people in that space. But once we've educated, it needs to be no tolerance. And when that happens, it needs to be taken seriously.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, while we were on break, I quickly went to one of my Instagram posts just to see what people were talking about. One of my friends is a fitness instructor, and she's plus size. And she says, even within the fitness realm, we also need an overhaul, right? Because nobody wants to see the fat yoga instructor. Nobody wants to see the fat runner, the fat, spin class instructor, or, whatever. And it's like, but fat people also exercise. I was sharing earlier in one of my videos, there's a guy I follow on Instagram. I think his handle is called 300 pounds and running. And he was at a healthcare provider. I forgot what the conversation was, but the healthcare provider said something negative, and the guy was like, he said to himself, I'm gonna show you. He started training for marathons and has run several marathons at his weight. It helps other people get out off the couch and run at whatever size, however fast or slow you run. It doesn't really matter as long as you're out there. And so he's actually really a good example of being healthy. I can't run a marathon. My skinny friends can't run you know what I'm saying? And it's like, but this man is literally doing that. And the reason why I brought this up is because at one point I was in a cycling group on Facebook, and I had rode with these people for years. One woman was like, this is disgusting, because he was on the cover of like Runner's Magazine or something like that. And she was like, this is disgusting. Why are we touting this as healthy? He's healthy. Ma'am, did you read it? The man running marathons.
Right. What tells you he's not healthy if you haven't seen his medical records? That's always my question. I've seen somebody say, well, Lizzo is telling people, that it's okay to get diabetes. Why do you think she has diabetes? She's vegan.
Right.
What makes you think she has diabetes? You see her medical
performer, like she's on stage performing. Do you do what she does?
Right.
Like, what's wrong? So see, this is why I get mad.
Same.
And she was so adamant about it, the person in this group. And the funny thing is, and me and this other girl were like, because we remember she actually used to be fat. So it's like, so that's how you felt about yourself. First of all, that's telling me that's how you felt about yourself before. Second of all, I got to get out this group because that's how you feel about me, because I'm fat. But so him running marathons didn't convince you. It's crazy the amount of bias that people have against fat people. Yeah. The other thing I want to share with you on TikTok earlier, someone made a comment. See, when I post up, people be saying all the things on all my little posts. She said, but it's funny because, this is what I want to talk about, the anti-blackness. And I think we've talked about it, but we haven't touched it like bullseye, the anti-blackness of anti-fatness. Somebody said as soon as Black people started showing up in the world as fat, we don't want to be fat no more. So then it's like everybody is like skinny, because before all the Rubenesque There were white people. It was good to be fat. That meant you were wealthy. You had access to food in a time when people didn't have access to food. So to be fat at that point in time in the world's history was like preferred. And in some point in time, I guess when they start seeing us being voluptuous and big, we don't want to be.
That came in my literature review that, you know, prior to the slave trade, you know, to be plump was like desired. That was a desirable body type. But because Black women and Black men too, but Black women specifically showed up with that body type, and their mind was Black equals fat and Black equals bad. So that means fat has to equal bad. So we can't be that anymore. And that was just the end of that. You know, that's not okay anymore. And so it just lets you know that this is all rooted in anti-Blackness.
Crazy. And then she also mentioned the dresses. So remember those, the women put that fake little hump on the back. I'm like, so fatness is wrong, but y'all wear the dress to make yourself look big and give yourself a backside.
Exactly. And I mean, we still see a version of that today with the BBLs and stuff. That's a whole different conversation.
Right. That's conversation number 2.
Right.
So you have a social media presence, Brandi. I want you to give, tell us where we can find you, and all your channels and whatnot. And, so we can have it for record. It's on camera, and then we can, folks can follow you if they want.
Yes, of course. I'm most active on YouTube these days. So it's As Told by Brandi with an I. My other social medias are all under Brandi Nicole. I'm not as active on Instagram as I once was, but after this dissertation, who knows? I might be back on there full time.
Yes.
But that's where you can find me always.
Child, we got to get these papers written. Ooh, and you said you did a narrative. I'm like, how you gonna code? I'm like, child, your code, you're gonna have like 3 million codes.
Oh, I finished the coding. So I'm in chapter 5 now. I'm wrapping it up.
Well, I'm gonna call you because I'm still trying to figure out. I have some codes, but I'm like, okay, what am I supposed to do now? Okay,
right.
I'm gonna have to call you then. Well, I thank you for coming on this episode and really bringing some, more information and some perspective to this very important, I think it's very important topic because, again, we need some more protections for folks. We need to get these doctors on board, even like I just said, the fitness industry, because how are we going to go to the gym if we're going to get clowned at that?
All right.
Y'all say y'all want us to go to the gym, but then when we go, y'all talk about it. So I don't understand. I'm confused. So there seems like there needs to be an overhaul across the entire, spectrum from healthcare to even like fitness. So I appreciate you being here. All right, y'all. Thank you for stopping by this week. You know where to find me. I have a website, www.nicoledvick.com. You can see my Spotify playlist of all my podcast episodes I've been on as a guest. All kinds of things. If you want me to come speak at your thing and talk to your people, whatever, it's all on there. I have written 2 books, Pushing Through, Finding the Light in Every Lesson, which is my memoir, and a journal. It's called Push Through, 52 Weeks of Light in Tough Times. They're all available also on the website or on Amazon if you want to do the Amazon route. And what else? Oh, social media. I'm on the TikToks, the Instagram, the LinkedIn. Everything is Nicole D. Vick. Check me out there, comment, say something, let me know you there. And that's it. I was gonna say we'll see you next week, but baby, next week Thanksgiving, we will not see you next week. I'm gonna be somewhere asleep, probably waiting for somebody to bring me some food, some vegan food. But all of you have a beautiful Thanksgiving, and we'll be back on November 30th. Thank you again, Brandi.
Thanks for having me. Bye.